Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Marty Ross, and tonight is a time for another Conversations with Marty Ross MD. As you know, this is a webinar where we're going to talk about Lyme disease, and I'm interested to see what you have in store for me tonight because it's your questions that create our webinar. For those of you that are new here, welcome. I'm glad to see a number of new names on my message board. Also, we've got a lot of people returning again too, which I think means you're getting some value out of this. So I'm glad to see that as well too. There's a couple ways you can participate in this webinar tonight. One is to see what questions others have and what responses I give to those questions. The other way is go bold, actually write a question, especially if this is your first time, that would be great. And so the way you do that, there is a chat box, and I guess I keep messing up where it's located on your screen, but there's a chat box on your computer, and go ahead and write your question to me there. The only thing I ask as you write your question is to hit the enter key one time only when you send the full question to me. If you try to use your enter key to create paragraphs, it sends multiple small questions my direction, which really gets complicated for me to be able to follow from my side over here, okay? As usual, I am creating a recording of tonight's webinar, and my hope, my intention, if everything goes well tonight with editing and writing a synopsis up tomorrow morning, we should be able to get that out to you probably around 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, Austin, Texas time, all right? And so look for that. When you get that email, feel free to share it with others. I have no problem with you sharing what we do here. You could even share the invites that will be part of that email tomorrow morning too, where you could sign up for next week's webinar as well too. All right. So we've got 3 more webinars in February. So this is the second one. And then the next 2 Thursdays I have scheduled already to be with you. Excuse me, I just had an apple a few minutes ago to get me through until dinner time here. Anyhow, I think that takes care of all of our background information here. And then finally, as you write your question, just be aware shorter questions work best. If these get to be too long, it doesn't really work well for this kind of a format, okay? All right, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. This is a question from Dan that I'm going to post on your screen. And if you are participating in the live version, you should be able to see it on your screen. I will still read the question out loud because in the recorded version, the questions do not show up. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and get started here. Hi, Dan. Let's see. Hi, Marty. Do you ever treat for retroviruses? Dr. Klinghardt at one point thought retroviruses needed to be treated before Lyme and co-infections. Thanks. So no, I don't. So my attitude with viruses of any kind, whether it's retroviruses, Epstein-Barr, which is the monovirus, cytomegalovirus, human herpes virus type 6, human herpes virus type 8, parvovirus B19, all of these viruses are common viruses that live in healthy people too, all right? So you can cohabitate with these viruses living in you. And in the majority of people, they don't cause any problems. The way we try to see if you have these viruses in you is we measure antibodies. And if the antibodies are elevated, that gives you some sense that they are in you, but it doesn't tell us whether your immune system is no longer keeping them under control. Because in healthy people, your immune system uses antibodies and white blood cells to keep those germs under control. We live in harmony with them, okay? A number of my colleagues I know will test for antibody levels against these various viruses, and if they see that they are elevated, will assume that they have to treat. I disagree, because just seeing elevated antibodies does not tell us whether those viruses have gotten active, whether you have an increased germ load, okay? Now, it is possible that when you have Lyme and you're at the beginning of your treatment, that the viruses may be active, but I choose not to go after them or to explore it further. And the reason is, in my opinion, if you do the basic things you need to do to treat Lyme, those steps that are found in my Ross Lyme support protocol, which is do things to get sleep, lower inflammatory cytokines, support your adrenals with ashwagandha, treat intestinal yeast if they're there and present, treat your various infections, eat a healthy diet, your immune system will eventually kick on and put those viruses under control. Okay. So if you do all those steps, including treat the tick-borne infections first, what happens is your immune system then can start paying better attention to the viruses if they are active, and will probably get them under control. All right. So I don't even start looking to do antibody testing to see if somebody has viruses until about 9 months into treatment. If we are about 9 months into treatment and somebody's not getting better, and I find antibodies suggesting a person has one of these viruses, then I may go ahead and treat those viruses using olive leaf extract. I might use some transfer factors, something called transfer factor plasmic, that helps target your immune system to fight these various viruses. I might use mushrooms, something called reishi mushrooms, to help support your immune system as well too. But those, I don't even look at doing that until about 9 months into treatment. Okay, so this is one of many instances where I disagree with Dr. Klinghardt. I think he's a brilliant doctor, but I think some of his ideas are just wrong. Okay, all right. Thanks, Dan, for that question. I'm going to do a quick screen share here and give you guys an article where you can read about how I approach viruses. Oops, hold on here. I can't do it yet. I forgot to set my computer up to do that. Hold on just a minute, everyone. All right, let me go ahead and try that screen share again here. All right, so this is my Lyme disease information site, Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD, and you can find the essential parts of this guide. One of those essential parts is my Lyme protocol. All right, and again, in here, I walk you through the basic steps you need to do to get well. All right, and these basic steps ultimately help your immune system work better. So number 1, get sleep. Number 2, be on a type of diet that is non-inflammatory. Number 3, lower your inflammation chemicals called cytokines, and I talk about herbs to do that. Be on something to support your body under stress. Balance out your hormones, that's your adrenal and your thyroid if you need to. Be on a good multivitamin. Do some basic detox steps that I outline here. Exercise to tolerance. And at the beginning, you may not be able to exercise, but if you can find a level that you don't pay the price the next day, that's good. In terms of immune boosters, I don't use anything specific. All these steps that I just talked about boost your immune system. Get yeast out in your intestines if they're overgrowing, and then treat your Lyme and your co-infections. All right, that's where I start. I don't even look for viruses until later. Okay. And then finally, if you are looking for information about how to treat the viruses and how to approach them, take a look in my infection treatment plan section here. And if we scroll down somewhere in here, I have a virus article. Yeah, here we go. It's called When and How to Treat Chronic Viruses in Lyme, a brief guide. Okay, that'll give you more background over the ideas that I just gave you here. All right, Dan, I hope that gives you, excuse me, I hope that gives you some useful information there. Hello, Doug. Let's see how Dr. Ross. Thank you for continuing to help the Lyme community in the outstanding way you do. You're welcome. Let's see, I'm treating for Lyme, Bartonella, and mold toxicity. My question relates to adrenal fatigue. My fatigue is debilitating. My latest saliva test ordered by my LMD shows low cortisol, below the beginning of normal range. For both morning tests, extremely low for the first test, low end of range for early evening, and higher end of the range for the night test. Prior tests were in the range, and my doctors unfortunately refused to recognize adrenal fatigue unless I was outside of the range and was never serious about helping me. Since 2021, I've tried various supplements, including adrenal cortex from Thorne and a boatload of adaptogens, none of which helped me, and some made me worse. Would it be reasonable for my LMD to prescribe a non-pharmacologic dose of hydrocortisone? I note that I'm on clonazepam for anxiety, temazepam, and doxepin for sleep. I don't know if benzos, let's see. Would inflict in any way if using steroids is automatically bad when treating Lyme, etc. A few of my doctors have given me blanket warnings about the impact to my immune system if I take hydrocortisone. I'm desperate for relief from fatigue. Thanks for your help. All right. So there's a couple things. Thanks for the question, Doug. And I want to talk about two major areas here. So number one, how to approach adrenal fatigue. And number two, what to do if you're doing things to get sleep, you're lowering your cytokines, you're dealing with your adrenal fatigue, you're treating infections, and you still have low energy. Okay, all right. So first of all, clearly with you do have some adrenal fatigue with your saliva test showing that. And if your herbal adaptogens like ashwagandha, like the Cortrex, which has some adaptogens in it, along with adrenal cortex, and it has actually got ground up adrenal gland in it. But if you've done other ones like rhodiola or Siberian ginseng, any of those, if you're not seeing improved energy and you still have testing showing low cortisol, then it's time to think about doing a prescription hydrocortisone, which is also known as Cortef. And you can use it at a dose that is considered to be physiologic, meaning a dose that we normally would expect your adrenals to make, okay? And that can be all the way up to 20 to 30 milligrams, or actually, 20 to 30 milligrams twice a day of Cortef, all right? So I usually start my patients at 5 milligrams twice a day of Cortef, first pill to be taken in the morning, and the second pill to be taken between 1 and 2 in the afternoon. I try not to take it too much later in the afternoon because I think it can be stimulating and keep a person awake, okay? But I want you to know it is safe to use it as long as you're staying in physiologic range, and that can be up to a total of 60 milligrams a day, okay? All right? That is not an immune suppressive dose. That is physiologic. You're making what the adrenal should make. Now, if your adrenals are still making some and you start taking the cortisol, it's just going to suppress what they're making. You're not going to get too much because of your adrenals contributed to the Cortef that you take, okay? All right. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that one of the reasons that people can have low energy in tick-borne infections and in mold toxicity is due to mitochondria dysfunction, all right? And in fact, I'm just updating my mitochondria dysfunction article, and keep your eye out on your email tomorrow. Sometime tomorrow morning, I hope to post up the latest version. Okay. All right. So, so your mitochondria, mitochondria are your cell energy factories. And by some estimates, there's 300 to 400 of these energy factories in each of our cells. When you have mold toxicity or you have tick-borne infections, the immune system reacts to them in a number of ways, but one of the things it does is it makes a lot of oxidation agents, okay? And these oxidizing agents can damage the mitochondria membrane. And there's the outer membrane of the mitochondria, but also the membranes on the inside that are responsible for transporting electrons to create cell energy called ATP, okay? So there's some basic steps that you want to do. You want to do some things to repair the mitochondria, all right? So there's also a quick fix. You can do a patch if you want to, and that is one of the process by which ATP is made. One of the processes is a process of electron transferring called oxidative phosphorylation. And that, because the membranes are injured, this oxidative phosphorylation doesn't take place well, and you can patch it. And a patch isn't going to fix the problem, but it's not going to repair the damage to the mitochondria, but it can give you a temporary relief in this electron transfer chain to create ATP, cell energy, okay? And so what does that patch is methylene blue. Now, many of you may have heard of methylene blue because we're starting to use that quite a bit to treat Bartonella And it also can help remove biofilms in Bartonella and Lyme. We're using it to treat Lyme. It also can help with people with Alzheimer's by raising a brain chemical called acetylcholine. Methylene blue can help treat depression. Methylene blue has this other thing that it does, which is it can patch your oxidative phosphorylation and give you ATP. Now, again, it's not fixing the underlying problem. You still want to repair the damage to the mitochondria, but it can give you a temporary fix, okay? And the way to do that is to take 25 to 50 milligrams twice a day. Methylene blue is something that would have to be prescribed by your doctor, and it would have to be made by a compounding pharmacy, okay? Again, keep your eyes out tomorrow morning in your email. Somewhere, hopefully before noon, at the latest by Monday, I will be posting this new article on mitochondria repair, the updated version of what I currently have, okay? But one of the steps, again, you can do is methylene blue to do a patch, okay? Second thing you want to do is take things that are going to repair the function of the mitochondria, get it working right again, okay? And one of those is to repair the damaged membrane. And to do that, I like using something called ATP 360. That's my favorite. And that has a bunch of phospholipids in it that will repair the membrane. It has a bunch of micronutrients in it that will help repair the membrane and help mitochondria function better too. And the product I like for that is a product by Thorne called ATP 360, and it's 3 pills 1 time a day. Also, I will have people do glutathione, liposomal glutathione. The product I like for that is the Tri-Fortify product by Research Nutritionals. And the reason I do that is it's an antioxidant that repairs the mitochondria from the inside. Okay, so your ATP 360 is repairing membranes from the outside. The glutathione as an antioxidant is repairing the membranes from the inside. Yes, do both of them. Okay. Third thing you want to do is if you are vegetarian or you don't eat red meat, you want to take something called acetyl L-carnitine. Carnitine you get in red meat, and it helps carry fat and sugar to the inside of the mitochondria to be burned into cell fuel. And if you are vegetarian or you don't eat red meat, you're not going to have enough of this transport carrier, so you won't get energy, the fuel sources for ATP, which is sugar and fat. Okay, and so that's 500 milligrams 1 time a day. And then you want to try, I usually suggest a type of diet called the Mito Food Plan. And you can look at my nutrition tab and see the diet I recommend there. All right, so those are some basic steps. Okay, now, if you do the ATP 360 and you do the glutathione and you do acetyl-carnitine if you need to, and you're about 2 months into trying that repair thing and your energy still is not improving, then I would look at doing peptides. And the peptide I would use is something called BPC 157. It's a peptide it's a peptide made naturally in our stomach linings, and its job is to do repair. It repairs a lot of things. It can repair injury to your muscles and your tendons and your nerves. It can balance out the immune system so it's not as inflammatory. And one of the things that it also does is it repairs mitochondria. Okay. And so you would do that as 500 micrograms, 1 pill twice a day. And if after a month of doing that, it doesn't seem to be helping, you could go up to 2 pills twice a day. Okay. Now, I know I've just said a lot of things. And if I could show you that article right now, I would. I'm putting the finishing touches on the newest version of it. If you were to go and look for my mitochondria article now, you would see an old version. It doesn't have, the old version does not say anything about peptides in it, and it does not say anything about methylene blue. But again, wait till late morning tomorrow, and you'll see an email come out from me announcing that the mitochondria article is updated and ready to be read. Okay. All right. So there you go, Doug. I hope that gives you some useful information. So yes, it's okay to use hydrocortisone up to about 60 milligrams a day. I have no problem with that. And yes, if you're doing much stuff to help your adrenals and you still have low energy, you got to start wondering about mitochondria injury. And there are steps you can do to repair. And you can even use a quick patch using the methylene blue while you're doing that repair work. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Doug. Hello, Dan. Let's see. Hi, Marty. Oops, we already had that one. Hello, Allah. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I really love these weekly webinars. Great. I'm glad you do. Let's see. Thank you so much for doing them. Just two quick questions. In your experience, do floaters associated with tick-borne diseases ever get better? I have had mine for several years now. Although treatment has reduced other symptoms, it has had no impact on floaters. Also, what role does L-arginine play in the management of Bartonella? Is Buhner right in saying it's crucial to use? Yeah. So regarding the floaters, I have seen. So first of all, I hope you've had your eyes looked at by an eye doctor. And although we can see floaters as part of tick-borne illness, there can be other causes of floaters. And so you should have your eyeballs analyzed to make sure that you're treating the right cause of your floaters. Okay? All right. But what I have found is generally for most people, once you do get your tick-borne infections under control, the floaters usually will resolve. Usually. Now, not in everyone, but for most people they do. Okay? All right. All right. And then regarding arginine. So arginine can help dilate your blood vessels. And the one thing we have to keep in mind with Bartonella is that Bartonella infects the endothelial cells that line your red blood vessels, okay? And when they do that, they cause inflammation of those endothelial cells, which can swell into the inside of your blood vessels and limiting blood flow, especially in real small blood vessels. But there's something else that may happen, and that is we're starting to have some understanding that there's a lining of your red blood cells that sits between the endothelial cells and the inside of your blood vessels, and that's something called the endothelial glycocalyx. The endothelial glycocalyx basically is a layer that has a bunch of small hair fibers that stick up into the blood flow, okay? And as blood flows over these hair fibers, it causes them to move, which releases nitric oxide, which dilates the blood vessel. So if your endothelial glycocalyx is functioning well, you presumably would not need any L-arginine to lead to dilation, okay? Now, this is an area that is a new and evolving area about the endothelial glycocalyx, where it's gotten a lot of attention is in the world of diabetes, where we know it gets damaged. There is some evidence that it might get damaged in long COVID. All right. And when it gets damaged, that leads to tissue and organ injury that we see in long COVID, for instance. Okay. So these days, I'm not using arginine. I'm starting to use a different product called Arterosil. And I'll show it to you here in a minute. Arterosil is an extract from green seaweed that is made up of something called ramen sulfate that helps to repair that injured glycocalyx. And therefore, you get better functioning glycocalyx, you get better nitric oxide production, and you get better blood flow. Okay. All right. Now, I will tell you, no one has done research to see what happens with the endothelial glycocalyx. If you do a literature search with Bartonella and glycocalyx, there's nothing. Okay. I've even engaged in a discussion with one of the lead researchers on Bartonella and endothelial damage, and that's a veterinarian named Dr. Breitschweit. And he is not aware of any research being done there too. So I asked him if he'd seen anything or anyone has been looking at this. But I think it's fair to say we probably do have some injury to it, knowing that you've got infection in the endothelial cells. And so probably there is some injury to the endothelial glycocalyx. So the way I'm approaching it is not to do the arginine, but rather I'm doing things to support the endothelial glycocalyx. Now, keep in mind, Buhner may not have been aware of an endothelial glycocalyx because this is newer discoveries that have come out, okay? All right, let me do a screen share here and I'll show you the product that I'm using to help repair that in both my long COVID patients as well as in my Bartonella patients. I'm starting to recommend that as well too. Let's see here. Let me pull up my website here. Okay, so this is my supplement store, Marty Ross MD Supplements. And as I think many of you know, anyone can buy from here. And if you're trying to see, when I talk about glutathione or I talk about ATP 360, if you're trying to see what they are or what I recommend, you can look here, for instance. So if you want to know what glutathione products do I recommend, you can just go ahead and type in glutathione. And you'll come across the Trifortify products recommended by, that I recommend from Research Nutritionals. Okay, all right. Now, the reasons you might want to buy from me, first of all, you support this kind of work, my webinars, okay? But secondly, there's some advantages for you. I sell all of these supplements at the lowest levels allowed by the manufacturer. If you happen to be in an area where you have to pay sales tax, I pay for that sales tax. You don't have to. And if you order $50 or more of supplements with an order, I'll ship it to you for free. Okay, so those are the things I do to try to make this more affordable for you. Okay, all right. So in terms of the Arterosil, I'm just going to type ART to make it easier. This is the Arterosil product here. Okay, and it is, you would do one pill twice a day. I'm sorry, you would actually start it. Let me see how I recommend it here. Just a minute, I want to double check. Yeah, you can do one pill 2 times a day. If you want to get more aggressive in the first month that you're using it, though, you could do 2 pills twice a day for 1 month and then change over to 1 pill twice a day. Okay? All right. All right. Thanks for that question, Ella. One other thing about the endothelial glycocalyx, as I said, I described, if these hair fibers get damaged as part of that damage, you don't get movement over them, you don't get as much nitric oxide produced. The other thing that happens is when you have damage to the glycocalyx, you start getting a lot of accumulation of blood clotting platelets and even red blood cells that start clogging the blood flow. Okay, so if you can repair it, you don't have you get the nitric oxide produced, but you also get rid of a lot of these platelets and red blood cell from accumulating. They don't accumulate there and block blood flow anymore either. Okay. Hello, medicine. Let's see. Which infection most likely causes burning, itching lesions to pop up every once in a while? Ah, boy, I would almost need to see what they look like. There is a skin manifestation of Lyme or Borrelia infection, which is called Morgellons. And Morgellons has some features to it, but it has these, you get these little skin breakdowns that have a burning quality. Often people, when they get these skin lesions, will also have filaments that are coming out of them too, all right? Now, when we look under the microscope, there's no way we haven't been able to see. We do see these filaments are keratin accumulations, okay, but we don't see what infections might be there. So we know that people with Morgellons, overwhelmingly, most of them test positive for Borrelia, Lyme, okay, and so therefore we think it is a skin manifestation of Lyme, and treating Lyme usually will take care of it. Now, I have to admit, there could be other causes of your skin rash too. So without being able to see it, it's hard for me to say for sure what it is, but I would raise that possibility of Morgellons. Okay. All right. Thanks for your question, Madison. Hello, Laura. Let's see. Thank you for all you do. You're welcome. Hold on here just a minute. Let's see. Our 27-year-old daughter has had Lyme, Bart, and Babesia for 12 years, misdiagnosed 6 years in Canada, and then treated 6 years by a US LLMD who is now on medical leave. Mast activation, or chronic inflammatory response syndrome, alpha-gal allergy. She takes clarithromycin, primaquine, atovaquone proquenil, hydrocortisone, nystatin, fluconazole, rifampin, sodium chrome glycate, 3 mold binders, and all the supplements for tick-borne diseases. Question: what is the replacement for rifampin that we can put in vegan capsules? Due to alpha-gal, we get rifampin compounded in vegan capsules because it's mass-produced in gelatin caps. Our U.S. compounding pharmacy told us they can't get raw rifampin to compound, and the regular rifampin capsules are fully sealed and can't be opened. She doesn't tolerate sulfur-based meds. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Okay, I see. Okay. So, there's a couple thoughts for you here. So first, I just want to look at what you're taking again, and just so everyone hears this. So the primaquine, atovaquone, proquenil, plus clarithromycin is a good Babesia treatment. It's a pretty strong Babesia treatment, okay? The clarithromycin, rifampin, is a good Bartonella treatment and also is a good Lyme treatment. The only problem I see with that treatment, though, is that you're not doing anything with what you've listed here, unless it's in the herbs, that would deal with persister Lyme or persister Bartonella. Okay, so everyone, we now know that both Lyme and Bartonella have a growing state. And we also recognize that some of the germs can go into hibernation, and we call those persisters. Traditional antibiotics generally don't do anything about the persisters. There is extensive research that's been going on trying to figure out what do we do for those. So we now know from research that came out, laboratory research that came out over a year ago, that the herbs Japanese knotweed, cryptolepis, which also treats Babesia, but knotweed, cryptolepis can treat growing and persister Bartonella, growing and persister Lyme, okay? And then cinnamon, clove, and oregano can also treat growing and persister Lyme, growing and persister Bartonella. So I don't know if you're doing in some of the herbs that you're on, if you're doing anything to do with persisters, but I just want to make you aware of, to be a thorough treatment, I like to do things to treat for persisters at the same time, okay? And I'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, now, if you can't tolerate the rifampin, there's not a direct substitute, meaning there's not another, I'll throw this out. You'd have to talk to your pharmacist. So rifampin is part of a family called the rifamycins. The other rifamycin is something called rifabutin. And I just don't know what kind of capsule it's put in. All right, I just don't know. You'd have to talk to your pharmacist to see, but it's called rifabutin, would be the other member of the rifamycins, all right? And the way we usually dose rifabutin is it's dosed at about half the strength of what you do the rifampin. All right, so that's an option, but you'd have to check with the pharmacist to see if given the alpha-gal, whether you could get it put in a capsule that would be safe, okay? All right. Now, here's some alternative drugs to consider, okay? So you could use the anti-yeast medication called fluconazole, also known as diflucan, to treat both Lyme and Bartonella. All right, now let me explain that, all right? So the fluconazole is in a family of antimicrobials called the azoles. And other azoles like metronidazole, which is Flagyl, and tinidazole, which is Tindamax, are very useful against cyst forms of Lyme. And therefore, we assume that Fluconazole would be too. Okay. All right. So it can help with the Lyme treatment. Okay. In addition, the azoles, there's some research I got done about 4 years ago now out of Johns Hopkins that showed us that one azole, which is an azole called blanking. It's an azole that's found in over-the-counter yeast creams. It was shown that it could actually treat both growing and persister Bartonella. Okay. The problem is it's not available in an oral form. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I started I thought about it a little bit more, and I thought, okay, so if one azole can work, why not another one, right? So I started adding fluconazole into my Bartonella treatments and saw some really good results with my patients. And so therefore, it probably treats persister and growing forms of Bartonella, just like the cream version did in the lab experiment. I apologize for blanking on the name of it. It starts with a C, and I just can't remember it right now. So one option you could do is get rid of that rifampin and do a fluconazole 150 or a 200 milligram pill one time a day. That fluconazole would help Lyme, and it would help growing and persister Bartonella. Okay. Third idea would be, so the first idea is possible rifampin. Second idea is fluconazole. Third idea is see if you can get one of your doctors to prescribe methylene blue. All right. So methylene blue is a drug that we have repurposed. It's approved to treat a blood condition called methemoglobinemia, where your hemoglobin inside your red blood cells grabs onto oxygen and doesn't release it. All right. And we know that that's a condition called methemoglobinemia. And if we give you methylene blue in an intravenous form, it helps to bump the oxygen off of your hemoglobin. And we usually use an intravenous form when somebody's in a crisis where their system is just not releasing the oxygen. They literally turn blue. And if you give them methylene blue, it helps, again, bump that oxygen off. Okay. But there's compelling research now that tells us it's a great antimicrobial. It can help with growing and persister Lyme and Bartonella. I mentioned earlier it has some other functions. It can help with mitochondrial function. It can help increase acetylcholine in the brain, which helps with thinking. It has some effects in helping with depression. It's just got a whole school of things that it does. Okay. But to take it, you have to make sure that you have adequate levels of something called G6PD, which is a blood test. Okay. But if you do, then you can take that. All right. Now, I will tell you, if you use it, it's going to stain everything blue that your urine touches. And it is a messy drug, but that's another option for you to consider as well, too. I'll show you my article about methylene blue here in a minute. All right. So those are some thoughts for you. Okay. And yeah, I think I answered your question there. So let me just do a quick screen share here. Oops, let's see. Hold on a minute. Okay, so this is my information site. Okay, so in terms of my methylene blue article, there it is. Mighty methylene blue for tick-borne infections and more. Okay, all right. So you can read through there about methylene blue. In terms of Bartonella and fluconazole, take a look in my infection treatment plan section here, and you can find information about it in this article called How to Treat Persister Lyme and Bartonella. And in here, I talk about methylene blue as an option. I talk about the cinnamon clove oregano as an option. I also talk, I guess I didn't. I thought I talked about it. Bear with me here a minute. I need to update this article to include diflucan. I can tell you where it is, though. Take a look at, let's go back here again, infection treatment plans. I thought I had it in there. Apologize about that. Take a look at my Kills Bartonella Brief Guide article here. And one of the options that I lay out is fluconazole-based treatment. You'll find it in my Tier 1 approaches, and take a look at the fluconazole-based treatments, okay? All right, there you go. All right. Laura, thanks for the question. Good luck to you. I know it's a lot of information. I hope I gave you some things you can look at, okay? Hello, Jordan. Do any of these infections cause low testosterone in males? Possibly all of them. Possibly. So let me explain the mechanism by that, how that happens. So when you get these infections, or if you have mold toxicity, or if you have chronic yeast overgrowth in your intestines, your immune system will see those problems and your white blood cells will manufacture a bunch of chemicals called cytokines, okay? And if you've been on my webinars before, you hear me talk about cytokines all the time. But basically, cytokines are good and bad. All right. So when your white blood cells make them, they're making them to help turn more of the immune system on, to help draw the immune cells where the problem is, and to help those immune cells work better. Okay. That's why your body makes these cytokines. However, in the conditions of tick-borne illnesses and in too many yeast living in your intestines and in mold toxicity, often the immune system doesn't do a good job, so it tries harder and harder, and eventually it makes too many cytokines, all right? And too many cytokines make it so you can't think, give you fatigue. They do basically most of what we call tick-borne infection symptoms and mold toxicity symptoms are due to too many cytokines. They disturb your sleep centers, give you low energy, make you hurt all over, make it so you can't think. And in addition, they interfere with all of your hormonal systems, all right? And the way that happens is there's a part of your brain that has two parts, something called the hypothalamus and pituitary. And the hypothalamus and pituitary is supposed to interpret what's going on with the hormones in your body and then manufacture chemicals to tell your testicles, in this case, to make more testosterone. That the cytokines interfere with the correct functioning of the hypothalamus pituitary. And that can lead you to have low thyroid. It can lead you to have low adrenals. It can lead in females to low estrogen and progesterone. And in men, it can sometimes lead to low testosterone. Okay. And that can happen with any of the tick-borne infections. All right. Good luck to you, Jordan. So one of the things you want to make sure you're doing, in addition to trying to get rid of your infections, is do things to lower cytokines, which would, what I like using is liposomal curcumin to do that. The product I like is a product made by Thorne called curcumin phytosome, and you would do it as a 500 milligram pill, one pill 3 times a day. Okay. In addition, if you temporarily need to, be on testosterone if you need to. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Jordan. Hello, Ella again. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I really love these weekly webinars. Oh, I think we answered these. Yeah, we already did that. Okay, got it. Let me get rid of that. Some people wrote their questions twice, so let me get rid of some of these. Hello, Kirsten. Let's see. Hi. I'm a long-term Lyme sufferer, 2 positive tests. I have peripheral neuropathy in my legs. Could you please advise me on which of the following supplements treatments I should discontinue, and what other natural antibiotics could I also try, especially for Borrelia burgdorferi, which showed up twice? I was taking bioactive silver hydrosil for a long time. Now I'm trying methylene blue instead as a natural antibiotic. I also take N-acetylcysteine, glycine, pro and prebiotics, vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin B complex, selenium, turmeric, K, magnesium, milk thistle, fish oil, iodine drops, MSM, taurine, adrenal desiccated, cistus tea, biofilm, chlorella for heavy detox, metal detox, and I'm making my own silica water. Thanks so much. All right. All right. So in terms of your antimicrobial, the methylene blue again can treat growing and persister Lyme and Bartonella. Generally, though, we find that the best treatments for dealing with these infections are to attack it from multiple angles. Okay. So the methylene blue works in one way. All right. So you might consider, if you're wanting to go all natural here, is looking at adding in a cinnamon, clove, oregano capsule. And the product for that is called liposomal cinnamon clove oregano essentials. And it's made by a company called Dr. Inspired Formulations. You can find it at my supplement store. All right. And that I would do is one pill twice a day. So your methylene blue and the cinnamon clove oregano then would be your the actual germ killers. Okay. All right. And then I like that you're on the N-acetylcysteine, the NAC, because that leads to more glutathione, which as an antioxidant helps lower cytokine levels. Okay. I don't know that there really is a need for glycine. I do think probiotics are good because you're protecting your gut. Vitamin D is useful for helping immune health and nerve health. The vitamin C probably is not essential here. You could let that go. The vitamin B complex is good for nerve function. The selenium, I think you could probably keep that one going. Turmeric is going to help lower cytokines. I don't know that you necessarily need to be on magnesium. If you're on the NAC, you don't necessarily need to be on milk thistle. Milk thistle supports the liver, but NAC will help support the liver too. Fish oil is good to support the covering of your nerves. MSM and taurine, I don't necessarily think you need to be on those. The desiccated adrenal is good for adrenal fatigue. I probably would recommend staying on that. Cistus tea, if you go to the cinnamon clove oregano capsules, that's good for biofilm too. So you wouldn't necessarily need to be on the cistus tea. Chlorella for heavy metal detox, I think, is fine. And the silica water is fine. Okay. The other thing that you may want to look at doing to support the nerve membranes and the mitochondria that get injured that are probably injured as part of the neuropathy would be to get on that ATP 360 that I mentioned earlier, which helps repair nerve cell membranes and your mitochondria membranes. And I would do that as 3 pills 1 time a day. Okay. Now, I have to caution you. I'm not your doctor. All right. I just gave you a bunch of advice, but I'm limited because I don't get to examine you. I don't get to ask you a bunch of other questions. I'm responding just to what you put here, but you would be better off if you actually could talk to a doctor, all right, about the recommendations I have. So I just have to tell you that. But just based on what you wrote here, those are some ideas that I have for you. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Kirsten. Hello, Linda. Let's see. I tried low-dose naltrexone, 1/4 of a pill, and it made me feel like I was floating and weird. Is this normal to start? So, one of the potential side effects that is rare, but occasionally people do have problems, is that it can give you this floating kind of feeling. What you might try to, and often if the longer you take it, that should go away. All right. But it doesn't always. When I have that occur, I try to dose all the way down to about 0.1 milligrams a day. And keep in mind, I usually start at 1.5 milligrams a day. After 2 weeks, I'll have a person go to 3 milligrams a day. And after 4 weeks, I'll have a person go to 4.5 milligrams a day. But when I get somebody that has central nervous system side effects like you're describing, I'll dose it way down to about 0.1 milligram a day. The other thing is I suggest taking it at, in this generally, to avoid the insomnia that sometimes can happen with it, I'll have people take it in the morning, okay? But when people have the kind of side effect you're describing, I might have them take it at night and see if by the time they wake up in the morning, if that side effect is gone. So you sleep through it, okay? All right, those are some thoughts for you, okay? So everyone, LDN is low-dose naltrexone. Naltrexone is something that is made in medicine to help people with drug and alcohol addiction problems, okay? But we know that it can be helpful to regulate the immune system if you use it at low doses. And so it's manufactured as a 50 milligram pill, but when we're using it at low doses, we're going to dose it anywhere from that 1.5 to 4.5 milligrams that I described, okay? And so it can do a good job of regulating the immune system. It also can stabilize your mast cells if you have mast cell activation syndrome. It can help with fibromyalgia type pain. It has gotten some good success in helping people with long COVID. It has a whole host of things that it can do. If you want more information about low-dose naltrexone, let me just do a quick screen share here for you. All right, so right up here in my search box, naltrexone. And here is the article. It's called Low-Dose Naltrexone, LDN, and Lyme, okay? Where I walk you through the ins and outs of how to use it, how to start it, potential side effects, etc. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Linda. Thanks for the question. Hello, CI Dr. Ross. Would you ever consider stocking Buhner herbals in tablet, capsule, or other formulation other than tinctures in your store? I cannot tolerate the alcohol-based tinctures anymore. Or do you recommend a reputable quality manufacturer? Thank you. Excuse me. I'm sorry to hear you can't tolerate the tinctures. I prefer the tinctures, which is why I carry them, to be honest with you, because I think they're stronger extracts. I have not looked into capsule versions. I would have to do that. Let me think about that, okay? And I don't know what the source would be I would look for. I don't think that the current manufacturer that I use for my tinctures would actually, I don't think they do capsule versions. I would have to look into it a little bit more, okay? All right. But thank you for asking that. I'm sorry, I just can't answer that. Let me think about it, though. All right. Hello, Sandra. Let's see. Thanks for everything, Dr. Marty. You're welcome. Let's see. Recently, I began retreating long-term Lyme with amoxicillin. I'm starting at 125 milligrams a day and still hurts. Is this typical of a low dose? And how much should I titrate up to? Also, I notice I'm having more adrenal surges, SVT, or I think you mean supraventricular tachycardia with that, and blood pressure increases. I also have Babesia and wondering if the retreatment of Lyme is causing the Babesia to surge. Do you think treating with cryptolepis or nemicin is best to treat Babesia while treating Lyme? Thanks. All right. So, to really answer you well, I would need to ask you a lot of questions, and unfortunately, I don't get to do that. So, for instance, I can't tell by what you wrote here whether you have active Babesia right now or not. I can't tell. So I can't recommend that you necessarily treat for Babesia because I can't tell if it's there. All right. And then I would want to know why you decided to retreat. So I'll throw kind of a curveball at you here. All right. So one of the reasons that I have found in my practice that people that have gotten better with Lyme by using herbal or prescription antimicrobials, they get better, and then maybe a year, maybe 2 years later, maybe longer, they start having symptoms return. And when those symptoms return, people automatically think, my Lyme must be back, or my Babesia must be back, okay? But I want to introduce another idea. Maybe it's not any of those. One of the biggest problems that we all have when we've treated for Lyme and we've treated for tick-borne illnesses is that by being on herbal and prescription antibiotics, we have injured our gut microbiome. So the bacteria, viruses, etc., that make up the lining of our intestines. And even when we're off these antibiotics or herbal antibiotics, because of the injury to the gut microbiome, there is a chance that down the road we can develop overgrowth of intestinal yeast. And that overgrowth of intestinal yeast can create a situation that looks like your Lyme got active or your Babesia got active. And the reason I'm also wondering about this is the fact that you're taking amoxicillin and you're getting worse on a really low dose, which makes me wonder if that amoxicillin is knocking off even more of the good bacteria in your gut, making yeast get even more active. Okay. All right. So let's talk about yeast real quick. So, your gut is made up of bacteria, parasites, worms, viruses, and yeast. All right. So we all have, most of us have some degree of yeast living in our intestines, but our bacteria and our gut keep them under control. Now, if your yeast start growing too much because there's an imbalance of good bacteria that's supposed to keep them under control, when the yeast grow too much, they trigger the immune system to manufacture too many cytokines, right? And remember, I was talking tonight earlier about cytokines and the role they play in giving us most of our Lyme disease problems. So if you've got yeast growing in your intestines too much, they're going to trigger excess cytokines, which is going to make you it's going to disturb your sleep potentially, make you feel fatigued, make you hurt all over, give you low energy, make it so you can't think. Those excess cytokines may even make you feel hot and clammy. They may disturb your adrenal function, etc. Okay, I think you see what I'm saying here. Okay, so in my experience, 80% of the time that I've gotten somebody well or relatively well, and then they seem to have a relapse, 80% of the time, it's due to too many yeast in the intestines. It's not a true relapse, all right? Things that would make me wonder if it is too many yeast is the fact you got worse after getting better. Number two, antibiotics are making you a lot worse than you would expect, all right? Other things to consider is before you had your decline, did you go on a sugar binge? Did you have all the extra sugar at the holidays? Or did you have a lot of alcohol that is rich in sugar too? All right. Are you having increased sugar cravings? Have you noticed that if you happen to have something with sugar in it, you get a lot worse than you might expect? Are you having a lot of intestinal gasiness and bloating? If you're a woman, are you having vaginal itching or vaginal discharge? Okay. And then finally, if you have too many yeast in your intestines, they will release toxins that get absorbed into your bloodstream and go to the skin, where they lead to worsening of skin rashes and can even lead to, in some people, lots of pimples and even worsening of acne. Okay. So if you said yes to a lot of those questions that I just answered, I would consider going after intestinal yeast first. Okay. All right. So let me show you a couple articles that you can take a look at here. All right. So take a look at my yeast chapter here. All right. And a silent problem, is it yeast? All right. This will help you kind of look at, do you have it? Okay. And okay, so if you look at this section right here where I say in the middle of treatment, it says, note, if a person has a sudden decline after doing better, there is a good chance yeast is the cause. Okay, that's the point I'm trying to raise with you here. Okay. All right. And then in terms of how do you treat too many yeast, take a look at my article in this yeast section called Kills and Prevents Yeast, a Brief Guide, where I walk you through both prescriptive and herbal options to help get your yeast under control. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Sandra. Hello, Linda. Hold on here just a minute. Let's see. Does everyone have heavy metals they need to detox out of their body while treating Lyme? The answer probably is no. All right. So the only way to know if you have excess heavy metals is to do some testing for them. And the way we do testing for heavy metals is we have you take something that will help provoke movement of those heavy metals out of your tissues into the bloodstream. And then we have you pee and we collect your urine and we look and see, do you have too many? Okay. So a typical type of a way to provoke is to use a chemical called DMSA. You wind up taking it over a 6-hour period of time, and then you pee and collect your urine over that 6-hour period of time. Or you take it at the beginning, and then you pee and collect your urine over a 6-hour period of time. All right. And then we see, do you have too much? Now, I used to test all my patients, and I'm giving you the simplified version here, okay? I used to test all of my patients for heavy metals. And when people did have elevated heavy metals, I would try to then do something called chelation, either with DMSA, or I might use glutathione. I might use some other agents. And what I have found is even when I do the chelation and the numbers come down, it doesn't really result in any benefit to the patient. All right. So in terms of things that I treat, I usually don't look for heavy metals. When I will look for heavy metals is if I've got a clear story from somebody that they got sick when they had a big mercury exposure, or they got sick with a big lead exposure. I might look for it at that time. But beyond that, in terms of things that contribute to the illness and add up to equal the illness, heavy metals, in my experience, just do not have much of an impact. I wish they did. If I found them and they're elevated and we removed them, I wish it would make a difference. But the reality is I found that with most of my patients, it doesn't make much of a difference in their overall symptoms. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Linda. Hello, Anna. Let's see. I'm planning to take an IGeneX test to test for Lyme and co-infections. Could you please share exactly which test should be done? Also, is it recommended to re-trigger aggravate the symptoms prior to testing? All right. So the testing I would do, and then I'll pull up a form, we can look at it together, is the IGeneX has many ways of testing for tick-borne infections, and other labs have many ways too. But these days, the best method to look and see if you have Borrelia, which is Lyme, Babesia, and Bartonella is a technique called the immunoblot. And what happens in the immunoblot, the reason it's the best test is the immunoblot is a method we use to see, is your immune system making antibodies against proteins found in the covering of the germs, okay? And what makes the IGeneX method the best is they test you for antibodies against more things, all right? So for Borrelia, they're looking to see if you have antibodies against 8 different strains of Borrelia. For Babesia, they're looking to see if you have antibodies against 2 specific strains. One is Babesia microti, another one is called Babesia taconi. And in addition, they test to see if you have antibodies against the genus or the whole family of Babesia. And we think there may be 15 to 20 strains of Babesia that can cause you problems. So in other words, they're looking to see if you have antibodies against the whole family. Therefore, they're looking to see if you have antibodies against any of them. Okay? All right. And then for Bartonella, a similar situation. They look to see if you have antibodies against 4 specific strains, and in addition, the family. And we think that within the family, there are 15 strains that can give you Bartonella. All right. So that's why it's the best. Okay. Secondly, when IGeneX does this immunoblot, they take proteins from these different germs and they genetically grow them in the lab. And what they've done is they've modified these proteins to remove parts of the proteins that might falsely attract antibodies made against virus infections. In other words, when you get a positive test, it means that the antibodies stuck on these germ proteins are truly made against the germ, and they weren't made against a virus giving you a false positive test. All right. So what makes the immunoblot the best is you've removed the chances of a false positive and you're testing against more strains. That's what makes it the best test. Okay. All right. So let me do a screen share here. All right. So let's see if we can find the IGeneX order form here. Okay, so this is the IGeneX order form. And what I would do, I would not do any of the panels. I would do 3. I would come down here into, I guess this is the last page, okay? And in the Lyme section, which is right here, you would look for the Lyme IgM immunoblot, which is test 325. Let me see if I can get this a little bit bigger for you here. All right, so you would look at this test 325, which is the Lyme immunoblot IgM, and test 335, which is the Lyme immunoblot IgG. Okay. For Babesia, I would do this test 900 and 905, which is the immunoblot IgM and IgG. And then for the Bartonella, I would do the immunoblot IgM and the immunoblot IgG, which is this test 374 and 384, okay? And although they're saying report 5 species, they're reporting 4 specific species and the whole genus, okay? So the whole family. Those are the tests I would do. So 384, 374 for Bartonella. Test, where are we here? 900, 905 for Babesia, and test 325 and 335 for Lyme. Okay. All right. That's where I would go. All right. Let me see if I can get out of here. All right. I hope that it gives you some useful information there. Good luck to you. Oh, the other part of your question about, so if you, one way to increase your chances, your odds of getting a positive test is to provoke a stronger antibody reaction. And one way to do that is to be on an antibiotic for about 3 weeks before you get the test drawn. It would have to be an antibiotic that would treat all 3 of those, all right? So you could look at doing like a cryptolepis. The herb cryptolepis is an herb that treats all 3 of those germs. And you could look at doing like a half teaspoonful 3 times a day. Do that for 3 weeks, get your blood drawn, okay? So that might provoke a stronger reaction that way, okay? Hello, Susan. Let's see. Tafenoquine is in short supply. GlaxoSmithKline has ceased manufacturing Krintofil. Another very small pharmacy does manufacture Arcoda, which is the same med but different strength. My daughter has been in contact with them, and they are trying to initiate clinical trials for elderly hospitalized Babesia patients. Fingers crossed the supply will increase soon. It takes 9 months to manufacture. Can you speak to the efficacy of tefenaquine? Thanks for your time and energy you spend on tick-borne diseases. All right. So that's the problem with tefenaquine. It's just we've had this ongoing shortage, okay? What is interesting, though, is that there is so tefenaquine, everyone, is in a family of antimalarials and also antibabesials known as the quinolines, all right? And the newest quinoline is tefenaquine. There is an older one called primaquine, all right? And that one tends to be more readily available. What we're seeing is that tefenaquine has now got some more recent laboratory experiments showing that when it is part of a Babesia microti treatment, that you can get eradication of Babesia microti. We also find it to be stronger in terms of treating something called Babesia oticoli. The problem is the drug itself is not actually approved for treating Babesia. It's approved for treating malaria. And so in terms of the strongest thing we can use, it is tefenaquine. But if it's not available, I will have my patients use primaquine instead. Okay. And so the tefenaquine, there's different ways that people dose it. I usually would have somebody take 300 milligrams once a week, and I would have them take that along with azithromycin, and I would have them take that along with atovaquone. Okay. But if it's not available, you could look at, and I'm giving you adult doses, you could look at doing primaquine, which comes as a 26 milligram pill, and you would do 2 primaquines once daily, and then you would couple that either with atovaquone, which is Mepron, or you could couple it with hydroxychloroquine, which is a quinine-like medicine, and you have an adult, take 200 milligrams twice a day, okay? Now, I lay out these different options in my Babesia treatment article. I'd be glad to show that to you, but those would be the way that I would go. The strongest way is tefenaquine. The next strongest way would be a primaquine, okay? All right. Let me just show you that. I'll do a screen share for you here. So take a look at my infection treatment plans, and then take a look at my Babesia. All right, now, you asked what's the strongest, okay? What I want to let you know is I still use non-tefenaquine-based treatments too. So in my antibiotics or antimicrobials I recommend, I have a group I call the Tier 1 Babesia treatments, okay? And to this day, Tier 1, I still use atovaquone-based treatments. Atovaquone would be Malarone or Mepron, and you couple it with some other antibiotics, okay? Or quinoline-based treatments, which would be the primaquine and tefenaquine that I was just mentioning, okay? Now, on the East Coast of the United States, they're starting to see that there's starting to be a lot of resistance to the atovaquone-based treatments. On the middle of the country in the United States and the middle of the country, or the West Coast of the country, these atovaquone-based treatments still work. So therefore, my patients that are middle of the country or West Coast, I tend to start on atovaquone-based treatments because it's more readily available and it still seems to work fairly well, okay? But if the atovaquone-based treatments are not working, then I will switch over to a quinoline-based treatment. For my patients that come from the East Coast, I'm more likely than not to start with a quinoline-based treatment because we're starting to see a lot more resistance to the atovaquone-based treatments there, okay? All right, then you can also look at herbal options that I have here, Cryptolepis, Artemisinin, and those are some herbal options that are useful in terms of treating Babesia as well too, especially if you can't find the prescription options, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Susan. Good luck to your daughter. Hello. So Jean says, so interesting. Thanks, Jean. I'm glad you're finding this interesting. Hello, Anna. For how long can one use diflucan 150 milligrams to treat Lyme and Bartonella? I generally use either 150 milligram or a 200 milligram pill for up to about 6 months, and then I'm going to want to change to something else. If I'm having success with the fluconazole diflucan, which is in the azole family, I might change over to another azole at that 6 months. And so I might go with something called itraconazole, and I would dose that at 100 milligrams as 2 of the 100 milligram pills one time a day. That would be a substitute I would do for the fluconazole diflucan. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Anna. Let's see. So Laura says, thank you for sharing all your amazing knowledge. We appreciate you so much. You're welcome. Thanks, Laura. Let's see. Laura says, we'll do everything you said. Dr. Letitia is sadly on medical leave. Yeah, I'm aware of that. I believe she's going to be coming back relatively soon, though, but I'm not sure about that. Okay, but I believe so from conversations I've had with her. But I am aware of that. Yeah. So Lisa says, I have a prescription for methylene blue, which I have not started yet. I'm also taking liposomal cinnamon clove oregano, Japanese knotweed, cat's claw, atoba, lumbar kinase, BPC 157 biocide, and LSF. Am I overdoing it? Can I leave off any of the above products if I start methylene blue? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and Lisa, I probably am forgetting what else you're on, but if you're going to be on methylene blue for persisters, then you don't necessarily need to be taking all of these. I mean, you might do like a methylene blue with just the cinnamon clove oregano and skip the knotweed and skip the cat's claw and skip the otoba. All right. That would be a good treatment, just those alone. Lumbar kinase is good, helps remove biofilms and fibrin nest. The BPC 157 is good for doing repair of injury and supporting your immune system. You probably could let go of the biocide and LSF too. All right. So yeah, there may be a little bit of overkill here. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. So you might just look at doing as your antimicrobials the methylene blue and the cinnamon clove oregano and let the other antimicrobials go. Okay. All right. Good luck. Kirsten says, hi again. How long can be one methylene blue? Generally when I use antimicrobials, the prescriptions, I try to limit those to about 6 months, and then I like to switch to prevent resistance from developing. For herbal antimicrobials, I sometimes will run those for a year or more as long as they're still working. The methylene blue is newer to us, right? But I have found in my practice, I could run that anywhere from 9 months to a year in some people and not have problems, okay? And still have benefit occurring from it, all right? Good luck to you. Hello, Stephanie. Thank you for doing these great seminars. Dr. Ross, you're welcome. What kind of herbs are best for preventing Lyme and co-infection, particularly for children 11 and up? What kind of dosage should I give them? Thank you. So the problem is we don't have any data that tells us that antimicrobials will prevent, herbal antimicrobials will prevent you from getting infection. So I don't have a game plan for you on that. The best way to prevent infection is to prevent tick bites, right? And so the things I like to do to prevent getting those, I'll show you an article, but one is when you're in a tick endemic area, you want to spray your skin with something called picaridin. You also might want to consider soaking your clothes in something called permethrin. And once your clothes dry, the permethrin will actually be good. You can wash your clothes multiple times and you'll still get benefit from the permethrin, okay? The other thing is if you live on property that has a lot of deer or rodents, you can try to clear the property by putting toilet paper rolls out with cotton inside and take that cotton and soak it in permethrin, which will then dry. Rodents take this back and put it in their nest, which starts killing all the ticks in that area then too. Okay, so you can kind of get your property a little bit more tick-free. All right. But in terms of herbs to prevent, I don't know what to advise you because I have no science that tells me what to do there. Okay. All right. Good luck, Stephanie. All right, let me see here. I want to do a quick screen share here. All right, so back at my my Lyme information site, in terms of, let's see my acute guide here. I thought I wrote an article on how to prevent Lyme. Let's see here. Yeah, here it is. So there's an article called How to Prevent Lyme Disease and Related Tick-Borne Infections, where I talk about picaridin, DEET, essential oils, etc. Okay. So this is an article to look at in terms of how do you protect yourself. Okay. All right, let's go here. So there's two places people can write questions to me, and I see some of you have written them on both sides, so just bear with me here. Yeah, looks like some of these are showing up on both sides, so bear with me. I'm just getting rid of some of these. That one we did. And we did that one. All right, so this is from Dan. Dan says, hi, Marty. Many LLDs believe there is no Lyme and co-infections with toxins like aluminum, mercury, glyphosate, etc., that you cannot get better without removing the toxins first. And once the toxins are removed, the Lyme is fairly easily to treat. Do you believe this thought process? Also, what's your belief on KPU? Thanks. All right. So no, I don't believe that. I know there's some doctors that come and approach it that way, but what I have found in my practice is it's a matter of killing your germs and doing all the other steps that I say to support yourself, like sleep, etc., in my Ross Lyme support protocol. But if you notice in my Ross Lyme support protocol, I don't have an extensive section about detoxing mercury, glyphosate, etc., because I have found that those steps really don't make much of a difference, to be honest with you. Okay. The pyroluria, for some people that is an issue, but the majority of people it is not. That's about the best I can say about that. Okay, Dan? All right. Thanks for the question. All right. So it looks like I've gotten through all of your questions here, but I want to show you one thing here. Let's see, how do I go there? All right. So everyone, I want to invite you to take a look at my community called Lyme United. And I think many of you are here because you keep finding benefit in my webinars. I also have this membership community called Lyme United, which is kind of like these webinars on steroids. All right. So in Lyme United, you get to interact with me regularly. And there are a number of forums that I have in Lyme United. You can read about Lyme United here. And if you are interested in joining us, you would click the Join Now button. I want to let you know, if you want to try it out, the first month you can try for free without paying anything, okay? In terms of the different forums that we're offering in there, I have a forum called Member to Member, where people with living with the illnesses help and support each other. There is a live webinar that I have once a month or once a week called Ask Marty Ross MD Live. This is a Zoom room webinar where I get to interact with people and they get to ask me questions. I get to ask questions. And even when I give a response, many of our members will pipe in with additional ideas. So we get a lot of input there. Okay. There's a daily question and answer forum where people can write questions to me. This is this office hours with Marty Ross MD. And between once a day for an hour, I write responses to those questions that have come through. Our members share about their wins, and that's a forum called Wins on Wednesdays. And we get to learn from their wins, what seems to be working, okay? We ask people to introduce themselves. And then we have a forum where our own members host events as well, too, all right? It's a very active group. We're up to about 60 members now. And my goal would be to see if we can get this to 100, maybe even 200. We're taking on about the last 2 weeks, we've taken on 10 new members. So we're growing in a way that's handleable, that we get to meet each other and get members to join in. But I invite you to join this. This is a group that if you get benefit from my webinars, you'll get a lot of benefit from Lyme United. So I invite you to do that. You'll find information about it on this Lyme United tab right here. Okay. All right. All right, everyone, that's it. There are no more questions, and we're at 7:26, so we actually got through all those. I enjoyed being with you here tonight. If you, tomorrow morning, keep an eye out for your email. You'll see an email from me, which will announce that the recording is ready to be seen. And in addition, you can use, you can sign up through a link there for the webinar next week as well, too. All right? All right. Good night, everyone.